The Rainforest XPRIZE competition challenges us to develop technology to rapidly map the biodiversity of the rainforest, but it also requires us to gain new insights rapidly too. Because the XPRIZE is a huge challenge, we need to break it up into manageable pieces. We define chunks that have a low risk of us being able to do them in time for the first contest round in early 2023. Low risk generally means we can afford to buy a solution, or we have done something similar before. As this is Duke, we also seek to break up the tasks into bits that could be done by a student group in a semester. The primary decomposition, we begin by using needs finding. We interview and talk with experts to find out what it means to measure biodiversity and gain insights into the biodiversity. Let's start with identifying plants in the rainforest. There are a lot of them, and just flowering trees, mosses, and ferns would be enough diversity to meet the minimum requirements of the XPRIZE competition. For now, we will not look at the insights problem, which is actually very hard. Experts helped us isolate ways they can tell what species a plant is. This is actually quite difficult, and there's a lot of expertise needed to do this, but we can provide the experts with the data they need. After talking to the experts more about what they really like and telling them what we know how to do, they shared challenges and interests. We noticed a theme emerging to do with being off the ground, but below the canopy, the top of the canopy. With some brainstorming, we came up with our first tasks, using drones to explore and take samples inside the rainforest. To explore with drones, we take photos and videos of plants, fungi, and lichens. This is not too hard to do. We can use the photos to do photogrammetry or LiDAR to directly measure the 3D structure of the forest. This needs some extra software to work. To collect samples, drones need to carry sampling devices. These can be challenging to build, but we've done it before. So now let's go back to our list and look at identifying animals. Experts once again helped us with the data they need to specify an animal, identify the species of an animal in the rainforest. The big problem is that animals are either elusive and rare, such as predators, or so abundant that you can get overwhelmed with the diversity like insects. So camera traps and sound recorders need to be out for a long time to catch elusive species, and abundant species need a fast sorting method that clearly identifies the differences. Animal tracks and feces are another way to identify critters, but they are hard to see in the rainforest. Once again, after talking to the experts more about what they'd really like and telling them what we know how to do, they shared challenges and interests. They seem to need the ability to get up into the upper forest layers and mobility to find the right spots to collect data. Let's start with getting up into the upper forest layers. Once again, we found that flying drones into the forest canopy was what would really help. Going back to what experts said about tracks and feces, we realized that in rainforests there are clearings and riverbanks that may work for this. We realized we could use drones to get to these not very common places quickly. So in summary, for identifying species, we now have a bunch of projects. These all use drones to collect data and samples in difficult to access places. So are we done? Based on the risk criterion, we are not done yet. Nothing is low risk yet. Let's see what's causing the risk problems. We'll start with the low-hanging fruit. Camera drones should be the easiest to get going as we can buy them ready built. The problem is nobody flies in the forest currently. There are many problems with this which we need to solve. Currently, you mostly see folks flying above forests or along rivers. Here's some videos of both these examples. Actually, on the left, there's a video taken by an expert pilot flying into forest. And if this doesn't scare the bejesus out of you watching this, It should. This makes me very nervous about flying in forest. But on the right, you can see what the forest looks like, and you can see that there are clearings you could drop down into and not have to do what the guy is doing on the left here. We can reduce the risk of flying into the forest by using a drone that can look up and developing a user interface that prevents flying where you cannot see. We need to be able to deliver the drones close to the data collection site. We have experience with building heavy lift cargo drones that could do this. We really need long-range communication into the forest. Building special drones to do this is something we also have experience with. We can also use autonomous drones as they come online. The Skydio 2 and X2 are getting there, but are still expensive and prone to getting stuck in the forest. This could be working by 2023. We can do further decomposition to these tasks to make them into semester-long chunks, doable by small groups of students. But let's look at some of the riskier tasks. Let's apply decomp to the high-risk task of cargo drones flying into the forest. We needed to talk to experts to assess what the risks actually are so we can address them. Then we thought of ways to break up the tasks into manageable pieces that would follow a logical flow. Parallel tasks, each of a lower risk, can spread the risk out and make it manageable, using mentors and experts to assess the risk of the subtasks. So sequential tasks can lower the risk for challenging tasks by solving a problem of lower risk first that the higher risk task is contingent upon. While we now think of these as low risk to complete by 2023, they're not yet semester-long chunks, so we should do further decomposition. But now I want to show examples of some different decomposition types. Let's look at an example of process decomposition for the drones that can look up and down in the forest. We can see how students in a design-oriented elective class approached the flying drone problem to make it lower risk. They developed these guides for drone photography and for maneuvering in the forest. Let's look at the flight maneuvering guide. And you can see here it's a sequence of tasks laid out that you have to go through to become good at learning how to fly in the forest. Designing a device to drop off a camera trap onto a branch was deemed low risk enough to do in a semester by first-year design students. The students had to do a design, and they did structural decomposition as part of the design. This involved breaking the design up into pieces they could either buy or make. Here are the results of one solution. They brainstormed a design that hooked over a branch, and as the drone flew over the branch, two of the 4 teams settled on this idea. They broke the design into 3 structures with different functions and fabricated them separately, and it worked. Our primary decomposition was a functional decomposition task. We broke up the main task into functions that, when all performed, completed the main task. So in summary then, here are the key points that we can learn from the XPRIZE decomposition. We asked experts for help to perform functional decomposition of the main tasks. We needed to do brainstorming, sometimes with experts, for ideas on how to find the subtasks. We kept on decomposing tasks until they were doable and low risk. And we asked our experts and mentors for help on assessing the risk if we didn't know how to do it. We did not always use the same kinds of decomposition technique. We used functional at the highest level, and that's not that uncommon. And then we used process and structural decomposition at the lower levels, which is often quite common. But without decomposition, this whole contest would not be possible.